Hello everyone, and welcome to another Top 5 Records video. And today I'm going to talk about another Pink Floyd album in the discography series, in which I'm taking a closer look at the full discography by Pink Floyd. Now, I've been listening to these albums chronologically, and I was very curious to find out what I would think of the final cut right now, because this album, the final cut, has always been one of my Pink Floyd albums of interest, really. I'm a big fan of The Wall, and when I started listening to Pink Floyd, the final cut, I just really took great interest in it. Also because at the same time I saw Roger Waters perform the Darkest of the Moon live, and the Darkest of the Moon tour featured a beautiful rendition of a song called the Fletcher Memorial Home, which really grabbed me by the balls. Now, having listened to all the other albums and coming to this one, and I was very lucky to have found this week a near mint copy of a first British pressing of this album, which I'm holding right now. I thought I would start to love this album more than I would usually. Yet I don't. I don't. What's going on here? Well, to fully explain it, I guess I have to dive into the history of this album. Basically, in 1982, Roger Waters decided to make a new album, first with the idea of calling it Spare Bricks. Some songs, leftover songs from The Wall, putting some songs from the soundtrack of The Wall on there. And in that process, he started to think differently, like not make this a Spare the Wall album, but use those songs for a new album, but make it more an anti-war album, because he was pretty much annoyed by the way Margaret Thatcher was handling the Falkland War. And it made Waters think about his own father, and because his father was in the war. So this really became a personal Roger Waters subject, in which the band had a different situation. The involvement of the band members was different. First of all, this is the first album without Richard Wright being involved. Now, Richard Wright is one of the founding members of Pink Floyd. Waters had fired him after The Wall. And Wright didn't come back. Nick Mason's involvement was pretty minor, basically reduced to some sound effects, at least. That's what stories tell. Now, David Gilmour was along, he was on board, but he's not so prominent on this album. David Gilmour stated that he had discussions with Roger Waters, that he was not very much interested in reusing material that was not good enough for The Wall, to which Roger Waters argumented that basically Pink Floyd has always been reusing material which they did not put on an album. But Gilmour thought these songs were not strong enough on their own, so if they were not strong enough for The Wall, why would they be strong enough for a new album? Which is an interesting argument. And although, I'm going to talk more about what I think of Pink Floyd without Roger Waters, I also think there is something to say of the moment in time for this. Because Waters would argue, and also a very interesting argument, if Gilmour wanted to have better songs on the album, why not write some? But Gilmour was not at a place of writing new material. He was just not so inspired. So Waters took the lead. And this is what came out of it. And it's not a bad album. Let me say that first of all. I think there are some very good songs here. I think the Fletcher Memorial Home is good. I think Southampton Duck is good. I have problems with, for example, Not Now John, which is a song co-sung by David Gilmour, and which another hard rock attempt that just doesn't really match. I mean, it's not that Gilmour had better ideas than Waters at this point. Both were not on top of their game. And the lack of involvement by the Floyd members made this album more the start of the Roger Waters sound than of a real Pink Floyd album. You can also hear it in the use of backing vocals. This is what Waters gets to do later on in his solo career. And the writing on this album is just not as diverse, doesn't have as much variations as a Pink Floyd album, but also not as some of the better Roger Waters solo albums. I think Waters is creating a new direction for himself, and this might be somewhat of a Roger Waters solo album with Pink Floyd involved. But Waters as a writer is not on top of his game here. I mean, Amused to Death, I think it's a better album. Roger Waters' solo album. I think The Pros and Cons of Hitchhiking is a better album than this one. I think that Is This the Life We Really Want is a better album. Waters has been doing better songwriting as a solo artist than he did on this moment within Pink Floyd. Nevertheless, it's not a bad album, but I think it's just average. Average. I don't think I'm gonna put this on as often as I thought I would when I bought it last week again. So, what do you think? Do you agree? Do you disagree? We are talking about the final Pink Floyd album with Roger Waters, and things are gonna change after this. But will they change for the better? Well, I'm gonna talk about that in another video. Nevertheless, I'm curious. What do you think? Do you agree? Do you disagree? Leave a comment below, and I'll see you in my next video. Bye.